I bought the cabin by Briar Lake to escape from everything. The town was small, and the cabin was far enough out that I could be alone, surrounded by nothing but the woods and the quiet, still lake. The perfect place for peace. At least, that's what I thought when I first arrived. One late afternoon, I was out by the shore, fixing up an old boat I'd brought with me. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the water. That's when I saw something strange, someone standing on the other side of the lake. They were so still, I almost didn't notice them. But once I did, I couldn't look away. Just a figure, standing there, staring straight at me from across the water. I squinted, trying to make out their face, but they were too far away. They didn't move, not even a wave or a nod. Just stood there, almost like they were waiting for something. I waved, thinking maybe it was someone from the nearby town, but they didn't respond. They just kept staring. It was odd, but I brushed it off. Probably just someone passing through, curious about the cabin. Charlie, my dog, didn't like it. He stood at my side, his fur bristling, letting out a low growl. That was unusual. Charlie loved everyone. I patted him on the head, trying to calm him down. "It's nothing, boy. Just someone minding their business." But deep down, I felt uneasy. Something about the way that person just stood there, watching, didn't sit right with me. I shook it off and went back inside as the sun dipped lower. I tried to focus on making dinner, but my thoughts kept drifting back to that figure. Who just stands there like that? No movement, no sign of being a regular person. It was strange. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every little noise outside seemed louder than usual, the creaking of the trees in the wind, the rustle of leaves. And there was this nagging feeling that someone was watching me. I got up several times to look out the window, half expecting to see that figure again. But every time, there was nothing but darkness, the lake barely visible under the moonlight. Still, the feeling wouldn't go away. Charlie was restless too, pacing back and forth by the door, his ears perked up. I tried telling myself it was all in my head. Just a long day, that's all. But sleep didn't come easy that night. The next day passed uneventfully. I spent most of it working on the boat, trying to keep my mind off the strange encounter. But when evening rolled around, and the light began to fade, I couldn't help but glance across the lake. And there they were. The figure. Closer this time, standing right at the edge of the water, just a little further from where I'd seen them before. I stared, heart pounding. This was no coincidence. Whoever it was, they were coming closer. Slowly, but definitely closer. I grabbed a pair of binoculars I kept in the cabin, hoping to finally see their face. But by the time I raised them to my eyes, the figure was gone. Just vanished. I lowered the binoculars and scanned the shoreline, but it was like they'd never been there. No splash, no movement. Just gone. That night, the unease settled in deep. I kept checking the windows, half expecting to see the figure standing closer to the cabin. But the night stayed quiet, aside from the wind whistling through the trees. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. By the third night, I was on edge. I stayed inside as the sun set, staring out the window toward the lake, waiting. Sure enough, the figure appeared again. This time, they were standing at the dock. My dock. Just standing there, dripping water, staring up at the cabin. I felt my stomach churn with fear. This wasn't normal. No one just stands on someone else's dock in the middle of the night like that. I called out through the door, my voice trembling. "Who are you? What do you want?" But no answer. The figure didn't move. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I grabbed a flashlight and shined it toward the dock. The beam cut through the dark, but when the light hit the dock, the figure was gone. Just gone. Not a trace. My heart raced. Charlie barked wildly at the door, his growl low and threatening. Sleep was impossible after that. Every creak in the cabin felt like a sign that the figure was getting closer. I barely slept, jumping at every little sound. The next evening, I decided I had to do something. I couldn't keep living in fear of whatever was out there. I sat on the porch, a flashlight and an old flare gun beside me, waiting for the figure to return. And sure enough, right around midnight, I heard the familiar splash. Slowly, I stood up and aimed the flashlight toward the lake. The figure was there again, standing at the water's edge, closer than ever. This time, they began walking toward me, right out of the water. Step by step, their wet clothes clinging to them, water dripping from their hair. I fired the flare gun into the air. The flare exploded in a burst of red light, illuminating the entire area. For the first time, I saw their face. Or what should have been a face. It was pale, almost transparent, like they had been underwater for years. Their eyes were hollow, empty, and yet locked onto mine with a kind of cold, lifeless intensity. I stumbled back in horror. The flare light flickered and then faded, and as soon as the darkness returned, the figure was gone. Just like that. That was the last straw. The next morning, I packed up my things and left the cabin. I didn't care how peaceful or beautiful Briar Lake was supposed to be. Something was wrong there. And I wasn't sticking around to find out what.